Hello, guys and girls, me Malina here, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Malina Radio Podcast. We're doing exclusively on Spotify, Odyssey, and also YouTube if YouTube doesn't take this down. But otherwise, how you doing today? Doing good? Doing good. That's great. I drink my soda pop like usual, and today we're going to talk about many different things in this podcast. It's going to be a revolutionary day. It's going to be a venture, obviously. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about is, we did talk about censorship last time on my podcast. But we'll go into it, and I'm going to talk about why I use Arch Linux, by the way. Now, this is going to be very important, you know. You may think, why you use Linux? Why you made an operating called Malina West? Why you founded Malina LLC, you know what I'm saying? And the reason why I founded Malina LLC is to combat against these corporations and these businesses who just wants to control centralization, you know. I didn't realize it, but one of the biggest problems we were missing was our payment system. The problem with payment system is centralized, and we needed a way to get back the payment, and that is Monero. I honestly started using Monero, so please support me. If you like the show, you can donate. You can donate now. You can donate me on the show with Monero. We're officially supporting Monero because we're taking back the beautiful house in 2024. That's our goal. But going back to what I was saying, obviously, one of the things I've been very, very devastated about is about what's happening with surveillance. Now I'm bipolar. I'm bipolar, and I'm a person who's with bipolar. But I honestly think that I don't want to be too dependent on this medicine. Now I love my medicine. I love my Risperidone. I love my Depakote for like the need. But the problem with that is it's basically organization technology. Now the problem with organization technology is you're kind of dependent on the what's it called, the economy, everything. So if like God forbid like the economic crash, I'm screwed because then I don't have the oh my God, I can't even say it right. But basically, I don't have to be able to get the medicine and all that stuff, the manufacture of the medicine, basically. I'm sorry, I've been studying like crazy. I've been in a good mood. But, you know, and that's the problem. And I think it's due to Big Pharma. Now, I'm going to get to this, I'm going to get to the conspiratorial. Now, obviously, Big Pharma has played a very important role in lives, you know what I'm saying? There's some theories that actually, which I think it's true, is that there's actually a secretly cure to cancer, and they're just not releasing about it because they just want to make profit over medicine. Because medicine, if you take medicine, for instance, like Risperidone, let's go to history. Let's go to the history of mental health first. Now, let's do history of surveillance, and we'll get into it. We'll go to that. Let's go get deeper. Let's get into it. But first, we'll talk about mental health first. In the beginning, mental health was basically like when people see you as like freaking out. You know, it's like, oh, like. It usually means like you had something wrong with you, basically. Like mental health usually refers to you have something wrong with you, and the way they were treated was very traumatizing, very bad to treat it. You know, now we got better with it, obviously, but there's one major flaw that people don't realize, and that is the labeling. The problem is nowadays we have labeling of consumers. Now labeling. So what do you mean by that? So you could be I use Linux, by the way. I use Arch Linux, and by the way, but I get labeled that, oh, you talk about computers too much. You should stop talking about computers. Blah 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 from these normies. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, bruh, you have no idea what I'm capable of. You know what I'm saying? But the problem is they so attached to this economy of organization technology, and it can lead to many problems, as demonstrated in this we're gonna talk about in this podcast, which is interesting. Now, one of the biggest problems with organization technology is that, like, it's centralized. Like I said, it's centralized. You have no control over it. You know, you may think, oh, you can fix this. You know what I'm saying? It's dependent on the manufacturer. It also depends on the government, in some cases, and an economy too. So, for instance, I'll give you an example of this laptop. I put a lot of money into this laptop, right? You know, but the problem is that, like, I'm dependent on parts of like Intel, you know, all that stuff. Software, it's a little bit easier to get, like you can duplicate it, but still with software, you kind of, if the internet is not there, you're screwed. You can't get the software. So that's the thing. But Linux at least is more open source, so there's a way around it, and it's actually more open. Which I'm gonna get. This is why I use Linux, because at least with Linux, it's actually small scale technology, kind of. Because with Linux, you can duplicate it, you can do whatever you want, you can keep it, and you own it. You actually own the software. This is why I use Arch. Because Arch, I built this myself. This operating system I created was by myself. I didn't build Arch, but I just like took the source built. I built an Arch Linux base, but you kind of make your own version of your system, which is pretty impressive. Now, one of the problems with Windows and Mac, which I hate Mac for sake of it, I hate people using Mac, but my mom uses Mac still, and I think my other brothers uses Windows. I don't know who uses, but I know my family members use Apple devices, and I can't stand that shit. Sorry about that, YouTube. But like I was saying, I switched to iPhone recently, but one of the things I miss. One of my dream phones I want to get is this privacy-based phone from Linux. Linux started making mobile phones. Not perfect, but one thing I like about Android, one thing I hate about Android is that it locks the bootloader, so it's you're kind of centralized. But now you have to get like a certain phone to go basically you have to get like a Pixel to like put like what's it called Graphene OS, which I recommend. If you want privacy phone, get Graphene OS. Best operating system for mobile. The problem is that the compatibility is very low, and at least with computers, you can like install any. With the old computer, or even new computers, you can install Linux easily. It's way easier now. But with mobile device, it's very hard to install like a custom ROM on a mobile device, especially Apple's, which is impossible. You forget about it. You're not gonna do it because it's proprietary. It's purposely designed to not, which is organizational technology depending on that, to not be able to install software. So what do we do about it? What we do? Well, what was the other problems too? The other problems too, besides organization technology, is also censorship, and censorship, which is a very big issue. So, but we'll get into that later. But let me first talk about civilians. Now, one of the also good things about using Linux is because it prevents civilians. You have more control of what spies on you. If you notice, I actually use Linux as my day-to-day driver. I don't care. I don't use any spyware. Well, the only exception is like my phone, which is bad, but I try to be very careful with the phone. You know what I'm saying. But I want to switch to. I want to get like my dream phone to get is a Graphene OS. So once I get like my custom Android, because right now I don't have the money right now, even though I have the money for iPhone. Which technically that was my mom. My mom bought the iPhone, but usually my mom doesn't know about these things, so she usually gets like normie stuff like an iPhone and like that, which is cool. It makes you look you look socially accepted, but. One of the biggest problems with society is that and even my teachers fall for this shit. Like it's still bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Is that it's about like social acceptance. You know what I'm saying? Which we're gonna get into it, which is part of related to mental health. Now, obviously, people see you're crazy if like, you have a privacy based Android device. Blah blah blah. Use Android sucks. I'm like, bro, they have no idea what they're talking about. I'm not. It's said with Apple. They're like, you have Apple. I accept with Apple. Like. The weird part of society is that they have a normalization. This is how normies' mind work. Okay, I'm not saying all normies are like this, but some people have this mindset of like basically not accepting someone who's different, which is wild. You know what I'm saying? I have bipolar personally. I don't give a shit what people think about it. I may think of shit, but I don't give a shit. Okay, let's be honest. And I just care about me. I care about my health, my safety, and everything. I care about you. The reason I use Linux is because I'm doing it for you guys. I'm doing it for you guys. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing it for you guys in the whole situation. I originally was going to go back to Windows, but I just can't use Windows. I can't stand it. I can't even stand Mac. I can't stand Mac. So. The only time I use Windows is if I have to. If worst case scenario, I have to. But I try to avoid Windows as much as possible. Try to avoid it, And I try to use. I don't even use Mac. I hate Mac. I don't even use Mac. But yeah, one of the biggest problems with Windows and Apple and also like society is like it's like they basically have the problem of basically society pressures. Like example would be like Nike. I'm not giving shame to Nike, okay? But like for example, if people see you have Nikes or Jordans, perfect example, Jordans. For instance, when other kids have Jordans and you have like Payless shoes, people like make fun of people who have Payless shoes. But most cases, the cheaper option is actually better. Some cases. I'm not saying like be a cheapskate. Don't be a cheapskate, obviously, but. It relates to what I'm talking about because of society norms. Society is designed for consumers, designed to consume products that is highly expensive that you get gypped off, which is terrible idea. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just wild about that shit. Really wild. So, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? And this is why I use Linux. But another option is called Monero. Monero, related to finance. But we'll get to that. We'll get into that. We'll get to that later. So let's get to what happened to the internet. Now I remember back in 2002, I didn't know I wasn't live. I wasn't live for the 90s, but at least in 2002. Well, let's go back to the 90s. But I was alive for the 90s internet, which I wish I was, because it probably would be amazing. Because they say that 90s internet was S tier, okay? I gotta give the 90s internet S tier. Now, back in the 90s, the internet was in the beginning, you know what I'm saying? But you had a lot of different you have a lot of different websites. Like everything, you basically own the internet. You basically not own it, but like it was open source. Not own. It was open source. The internet was more open source. You didn't have these proprietary nonsense like Google. You didn't have proprietary nonsense like YouTube. You didn't have censorship as much. You didn't have artificial intelligence to the point where they censor everything, like these bots to censor art stuff. You know, it was awesome. You know, it was great. It was like we call it the golden age of internet. It was the golden age. I think the 90s was like the golden age of internet. You know, now it's long gone now, obviously. But one thing led to another, and then around I think like 2001 after 9/11. See, here's when I talk to people about this shit. Like people think, oh, it's a good thing we have the Patriot Act, blah blah blah. I'm not saying the bad word because I know the government's gonna shut me down because of that. But the thing with the Patriot Act is the Patriot Act was meant to basically cause more surveillance basically because of terrorism. Basically, it's meant to like censor stuff because the reason was because of the terrorists, you know what I'm saying? Because of the terrorists. But in reality, it was actually more for surveillance purposes and spyware people spying you, which is crazy. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry about the microphone, but like I was saying, it was meant to have people have government spy and companies, governments, banks, everyone to spy on you. Because back in the day, like, you know, it was awesome. So, like, back in the day, you didn't have to worry about this as much. Yeah, spying, but usually using spying refers to, like, basically overseas, like, other countries spying. You know, that was different, you know? It wasn't like China back in the day where, like, it was not, you know, but let's be honest. But we'll get into it. So, now we realize, okay, and then after that, you know, like I'll say, like 2015, yeah, the Snowden links that describe Prism, all that stuff, the government, YouTube, everything, they spy on you, everything, all that stuff, and you know the conspiracy theories that we thought, oh, this is not gonna happen, all that stuff. Oh, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen in like what's it called in like in 2020s or the late 2020s or 2015. It's not gonna happen. Well, nothing spying it. They found out it was spying and blah blah blah. So you know, Snowden got in trouble because, well, he didn't get in trouble. He basically exposed the government, but like it just led to like it led to like less people like acknowledging it just basically send it was basically a violation of basically the government was breaking the law basically, and they were breaking their own law of the Constitution. Because you look at the Constitution, right? If you look at, I know the Constitution firsthand. First one is freedom of expression, okay? First, very important. Second, bear arms. And I believe the third one, I'm not sure, but the third one, something with like, you gotta read it, you gotta look it up, you gotta read the Constitution. But there's a lot of things like voting is important, like you should vote, you know, all that stuff, and very important stuff. You should know, and then you should not show your ID to like an officer or someone that you don't know, and you should not show your ID really anywhere, but that's been long gone because now you have to show your ID everywhere. You have to show your ID to create a bank, or what? It's like, bro, like, you know, I'm not getting into that, but yeah, this is interesting. Now it's more surveillance. Now you have to show your ID everywhere. Now you have to show ID to these exchanges, these bank accounts, which back in the day you didn't have that. You might have to show a little ID, but that was about it. You didn't have to show a birth certificate. You didn't have to show everything, like every little detail, every transaction. Like now it's monitored. Okay, oh god, forget about it. I'm not getting into my personal life because oh god, I screwed up like that area, but I'm not getting into that. So yeah, so that's a big problem. And then after that, like 2020s became the fallen of Christ. You know, the fallen of the Antichrist, like the mark of the beast, we called it. I think I called the mark of the beast due to the cough or the laughing cough. Basically, a lot of censorship was happening during the cough. Basically, I can't say because you know YouTube will censor this video. So during the cough, basically, a lot of companies had to censor because of cough, and you had to get like blank. You had to get blank. You had to get the cough machine. You know what I'm talking about, like the machine. You know what I'm talking about. I can't say it, but you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't get the machine, then like they basically destroy you. They basically destroy your channel, and they basically censor you. But really, it's just more control of like there's like, oh, it's because of blank information, and I'm like, no, it's not because of misinformation. It's because of something else. So due to the cough, they had to like they censored it and they declined speech. And then after that, you had the Ukrainian war, all that stuff, and then some governments was like, oh, if we do that, if we do that, we have to like basically, we have to like if you don't support the war, we will censor you, we will screw you over, we will not let you accept payment. So it got really bad. It's the point that even payment processors like PayPal and all that stuff, like terms of service, even like Visa, I think Chase, also TD Bank, all those banks, all the banks, especially Chase, all those banks, where now like if you say something you don't like, or even if you're not doing anything wrong, they could censor your account, they close your account, they could censor everything, and then they close your account, and you're basically screwed. You know what I'm saying? If you're lucky like me, you could probably get the money back, but if you're unlucky, you lose your money. They freeze the account, you're screwed. You can't access anything. So and then like it's really bad. It's really disastrous, and like there's literally terms of service in some banks where like if you do that, like if you say certain things, they will ban your account. It's wild. So that's some slowly just transition to cryptocurrency. So okay. So you may wonder what's other problems too, and then other problems too you have is like YouTube censorship, which I made a last video. I made a video about the Mark of the Beast last time, and that almost got censored luckily. But luckily I peeled it and got it back because I found a loophole in the system because it's YouTube. I know YouTube's laws than anybody does. You know what I'm saying? I know YouTube's laws than anybody does. To be honest, but YouTube can be unfair and they censor a lot of stuff because of hate. Like it's really bad. It's really bad. Really bad. So really bad. So. It's really bad. It's actually really bad. The censorship is way off the scale. Way off the scale. You know what I'm saying? And not to mention the government spying you and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Which is a big issue. But yeah, and let's get to mental health services. Then recently, what I noticed too is like when I go to therapy or talk to my psychiatrist, it's on the phone or on Zoom, which is even though it's encrypted. Yes, it's encrypted. They could still wiretap you somehow because it's a middleman. They can still somehow unlock the encryption. It's not the best idea because back in the day, at least like when you go to therapy or when you go to mental health services, it's in person, so you have more security. You know what I'm saying? And it was good. It was very good. But one of the biggest flaws for therapy, but back in the day, there was this law like therapist was not allowed to tell you anything. Like you could tell a therapist anything, and it was encrypted. Like they would not let not encrypted, but when you go to therapy back in the day. You could tell her anything. You can even say all that stuff, and they're not allowed supposed to tell anything, which was great. It was great. It was awesome. It was great. And you didn't have to worry about the fear. If you said something wrong, they will tell the officials, or you didn't have to worry about that shit. Like I tell you firsthand, when I went to therapy the first time, never had a problem with that. Well, now therapy nowadays, like they will mention too. They will literally mention to you if you say something that they disagree with, or like, well, yeah, they use it for like, supposedly for we preventive suicide or something like that. And if you say suicide stuff, look, bruh, let's be honest, man. Let's be honest. The world is hell, and I don't get that shit. I don't get why. Like, I understand you're trying to prevent suicide, but there's better ways around it. Like, let's be honest. But now it's not encrypted. Like now, let's say like if they made a new rule, let's say the government made a new rule, like you said this and that and that. They could, the fact, and also too, what's interesting too about mental health services is they write notes. They write a whole bunch of notes. They write a whole bunch of data, and that data is not stored somewhere securely. It's actually stored in a paper, pen, and books. So that could like be exploited, and not to mention that medical records is on the internet somehow, which is interesting. Which is crazy. It's encrypted. It's in the deep web. Which I forget about. That's a disaster. They can monitor it really easily. So, it's really bad. Not to mention that healthcare in general, it's just a whole scam. And then you have insurance, you have that, and all that stuff. And then you don't own your car. You don't own all that stuff. But it's a big problem. It's a very big problem. And basically, which led to recently where like there's a saying that like now soon we may own nothing. And we may be happy. We may be doing that right now. Like we're like, we own nothing, and we'll be still happy, because people are using the streaming services, all that stuff, and it's like the ownership is lost. It's basically lost, mixed with monitoring and spying and also like surveillance and also people like now when you go to therapy. You don't have the option to go. Well, you have the option. Well, that's probably gonna be not optional, but like soon there's probably gonna be an option where you have to go, you know, remotely only, which sucks, which really sucks for consumers. And what if you don't have internet? You're screwed. You know what I'm saying? But it's really bad. It's really bad. And this is why I founded Malina, because I want to make Malina great and grateful forever, where it's open source. Anybody can contribute, even if like I ask them to spy. I believe in open source and I believe in privacy, and that's the key of Malina. This is why I founded Malina, because Malina is very essential. I think Malina is the key to stop these corporations and become a monopoly where anybody can contribute, and it's gonna be very bright open. It's an open source internet. That's what the internet is supposed to be, open source. Whew. Okay, we got this out of the way. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about is we'll talk about a lot of things. I'm not getting into it, but there's a lot of things I want to talk about. But yeah, let's talk about food control. Now, back in the day, when back in the day with farms, and back in the day with farms, we used to farm. We used to go on the farm. Back in my day, we used to farm. It was awesome. It was awesome. We had a farm, we had chickens, we had everything. But now food is more. Now, food back in the day was actually more. Back in the day was more small. What's it called? Small technology. It was more like small technology. I mean, like you have control of it. It was technology, you have control of it. Where like you own the technology. Basically, you can go out to the woods and you can hunt some fish. You can hunt some food like that. The experience, like an example of small technology is like what's it called? Is a chair. A chair. You could actually make a chair in the woods. You can actually sit down on the floor if you want to. Doesn't matter. You can make it a chair. It's pretty easy. Another example is cups. Cups surprisingly is kind of small technology. You can make cups if you want. You can just get like you can kind of make it. You can kind of make the cups, clay, whatever. But big problem nowadays is that people are slowly transitioning and be more dependent on organization technology, which is really bad. I gotta admit, I'm fall for that too. I spend money on technology that is not for small scale, but for organizations, it's really bad. This is why I want to change it. But, however, despite all that, I still invest managementally into small technology. Even though it's organization technology, it's less severe compared to like Windows or Mac. Like I use Linux or I use like Monero or that stuff. So we're gonna get into that. We'll get into that. What we should use, what stuff you could use. You know what I'm saying? But another example. But yeah, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and bad and really bad in general. Really bad. And censorship has been on this point. But another example would be like farmer and all that stuff. Like big pharma is a big issue in this country. I think that's a big issue too. But also labeling people. That's how if you don't do this, we're gonna send you to the mental health institution basically. And it's just wild. You know what I'm saying? And that's how the Asians say I'm saying. But I'm not getting into that. But like you have control of like information and all that stuff, and then you have like control of like there's a saying that like. I honestly think that my bio mom was actually pretty much right about this surveillance thing. I think she predicted the surveillance. Let's be honest, because if you look at my adopted mom, like no offense to my adopted mom, I love her no matter what. But I think my adopted mom's is a normie. I feel like she's more normie. One thing, my bio mom, I think, my adopted mom would say that my bio mom was very smart, very book smart, and which I give credit to my mom. She did some really wise stuff, It's not, but I think one of the things I think my bio mom predicted really well, and I didn't realize in the future, is the control of organization technology. One thing she doesn't do is she didn't take a medicine. You might think, it's a bad thing, it's a bad thing. Kind of is, yes. I still I've taken my medicine obviously, so I can function in this organization technology world, but. I want to learn how to get natural herbs. Like I want to be smart about it. See, one thing my mom, she could have like get natural herbs, which would have helped with that. But she believed none of that would help. But I think like natural herbs would help with that, and I hope she did that. But I don't think she did that. She probably just didn't take any medicine and think, oh, I'm fine nowadays. I don't need anything. But you obviously need natural herbs, so natural herbs could probably help with that. Which I prefer natural. I'm probably gonna switch to natural herbs in the future. But right now I'm basically dependent on medicine working. The problem is if I run out of medicine, I have to go to like the pharmacy or blah blah blah. And if the pharmacy is closed, I'm screwed. If there's a COVID down, I'm dependent on organization technology. One thing my adopted mom realizes is that that's organization technology. I'm dependent on that. If society collapses, if the market of beasts, if the market of beasts of Jesus come back from the gods comes to the world, I'm screwed basically because then I have to depend on organization technology. So this is why I'm trying to diversify. Now you may think, oh Matthew, you own it. Okay, another example of organization technology is solar panels and also electricity. Electricity you don't really own. You don't really own that because the thing is to make it, you can't make it in the woods. You have to like rely on other people. Same thing with Spotify. That's organization technology. All that stuff. But how do we? My question is, how do we implement? How do we implement small technology in with organization technology? Convert organization technology to technology that you own. Okay, how do we do that? And that's by using open source software. One example of open source software is Linux. I use Linux because I'm not doing this for you. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you guys because I think Linux has. I even made an operating system called Malinos, which you should check out, which is open source, and we'll try to make it compatible with the new update we'll release is a Monero update. We're gonna try to see if it's compatible. If not, we're gonna use a different software. But yeah, we're gonna try to make it compatible with Monero. And you can donate with Monero, but I think like it's very important to like more people to use open source software and adopt it and more. It's very important to keep this alive, so we don't have you don't have to worry about surveillance, you don't have to worry about control and all that stuff. Another great technology too is Monero. Monero is pretty good. I like Monero, and another also great technology is Tor. Tor is pretty good too. Tor is pretty awesome because it was, even though it was made by the government, eventually it became open source and it was licensed to like open source. I said OpenGPL, which is pretty good. So Tor is pretty good. Another example is I2P. That's pretty good. Basically, these alternative internet, so you don't have to worry about censorship, all that stuff. It's pretty good. I even made like my own like onion site at one point with like the internet. It was awesome. It's awesome. Pretty easy to do. And you own it. You don't own the server. You don't have to worry about getting this domain and then connect to the credit card and a debit card. Nope. You can just do it anonymously. It's pretty awesome. And that's one way to renew it. Another example is it's also BitTorrents. Torrents. Torrents is pretty good. But the problem with actually, torrents is pretty good. Torrents is pretty good, yeah. But the problem with YouTube is they like to censor like torrent files, so you might have to go to like the deep web to find it. But like I said, Tor is turn the browser, so you can see everything even if it block it. And let's say you're in China, you can use Tor to bypass all that firewalls. You know what I'm saying? Let's say governments ban Tor, you can just still access the internet to Tor using bridges. Pretty amazing. So you have use Tor. Downside with Tor is like the only downside is like if you like you won't have fast. You can't download videos faster. So if you want to stream videos, it'll be hard. But you can basic web pages you can work. But the downside is like it hops back and forth from different loops and different nodes. The downside with that is like you can't. It's just very slow experience. There's also the Tails computer operating system, which is Linux, which is open source. But it's also more like temporary. Like you don't really own it, but it's useful for like journalists if you're in like a country like North Korea and you don't want anybody knows your files, which is good. So pretty good. Tails is pretty good. I recommend Edward still needs to use that. Also, another thing too is Cube's OS. Cube's OS is pretty good. That's the operating system that Edward Snowden uses. That's pretty good. But another one is Arch Linux. Now, if you're a normie, I recommend Arch Linux for privacy because you basically build your own system by yourself and have the private, and you can make it private or you can make it not private. But I prefer make it private. So you actually make it. It's more private because you own it. Now, I don't like Ubuntu is good, but the problem with Ubuntu is they've been having the monitoring issues, and I just like it's while it's easy, I don't care for it because you don't have control of it because anything can happen to it. At least with Arch Linux is good. Arctic Linux is also good, and also another good one is Gentoo. You know what I'm saying? Gentoo is Arch, but way better in some cases. So Gentoo is awesome too because downside is you got to compile a lot and it's way harder. I don't know how to use Gentoo personally. I use Arch because Arch is easier, and I also use Ubuntu. I used to use like Debian, which is okay, but but there's options and Linux. If let's say someone's trying to like start monitor it. You can just switch to a different distro, but I think the easiest and the best distro to use is Arch. Arch is awesome. You learn about how Linux works easily, and it's just way easier. So it's awesome. Okay, so now let's get to finance. Now the problem with finance is now it's centralized, and all these banks and corporations like Chase banks, TD banks, or whatever is censorship, and they like the censorship. So we talked about the censorship part, but the problem is like also too like let's say you didn't mean to do a crime, you didn't mean to do the crime, or like, they think you did a crime, and even if you didn't do nothing wrong, they can censor your account for absolutely no reason and tell you like, oh, go to this branch or whatever. So what do we do about it? What do we do about this bank situation? And also, most jobs will require you to get a bank account and all that stuff, which is bad. How do we solve this issue? Do we live in tents? Do we live in a tents? Do we live in the woods? Which, yeah, you could do that in theory. But one of the biggest option, speaking one of the biggest player, which I'm really interested in, is Monero. Monero has potential to change finances. Now, we had Bitcoin before, but the problem with Bitcoin, it's a privacy nightmare. Goddamn, I can't speak. It's a privacy nightmare. Bitcoin is literally a privacy network. It's good for like decentralization, but privacy wise, terrible for privacy. So what we have here is it was basically Bitcoin but done wrong. Basically Bitcoin started, and then you have Monero, which is basically Bitcoin done right, basically. So I love Monero. I switched to Monero recently, and Monero is awesome. So I actually have that for a backup financial situation. Backup, what's it called? Backup money situations. Like if you want to donate by Monero, you can check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to Monero page, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. So I have Monero now, which is interesting. So yeah, we have Monero now, which is cool. Which is pretty cool and pretty amazing. So Monero is actually the official currency. But yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty awesome too. Now Monero is actually pretty useful and also a lot of stuff. So obviously, so yeah, Monero is pretty useful. But yeah, like I said, we have Monero now, and yeah, so that's the financials right there. Now, you may think, oh, this podcast is almost over, and you may think, oh, it's almost over. It's almost over. No, it's not. We're not even done yet. But yeah, surveillance is a big problem and it's a big issue, and we just have to solve this. This is why I use Linux. Monero is pretty good. Another good thing too is HTTPS. HTTPS has been encrypted, and also Tails, like I said, and also like Tor, which is more encrypted and easier to set up than HTTPS. Oh god, it's encrypted, yes, but you have to connect to like a domain, and you have to use credit card. No, don't use. Just use the onion links. Just use what's it called? Tor. Tor is way better. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the rant. I just love Tor. I use Tor all day. Tor is also where you can find illegal. Tor is also where you can like find like weird stuff. I can't say it, but you just gotta be careful, kids. You just be responsible. Like just use it responsibly. Don't use it for dumb reasons. And if you see anything that is inappropriate, report it to authorities. But that's just for legal reasons. YouTube, you're legally using YouTube. I'm doing it legally. YouTube. Okay. Let's get to the okay. After joking around, let's get to the podcast. But like I was saying, though, it's just very interesting to note that like all these things has been happening for surveillance and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I and even teachers I met like that I thought they were good mentors. Fall for this like idea that you should support Apple devices and they think that private they're good and they, like even my teacher too, my old teacher, I love her too. I love her teacher. I love you know, shout out to Miss Fryer, but Miss Fryer back in the day, my teacher, for instance, Fryer, I'm saying, like I know like I'm not gonna lie, she was kind of annoying me, and she thought that like Apple devices were particularly private, but we obviously know that Apple just spies on you like crazy. Let's be honest, you're trusting a corporation to know, even if the corporation says, "Oh, we're private," all that stuff. You have to look. If you can't look at the source code, that's a bad sign usually, and usually they can monitor you with that. So, yeah. So let's get that. All right. So you may wonder what's my personality type. I'm an INFJ. Same thing for the comment section. I'm an INFJ, and I believe in open sourceness. I believe in control. Open sourceness, freedom, all that self-expression. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. Also, nothing too. You can also do is create websites. You know, create websites, but I think creating websites is very important nowadays because let's say you get banned on YouTube. At least with a website, you could have ownership and like that. But obviously, don't connect to your Google account, which is that's the dumb mistake I did. But I'm slowly, you know, what I'm saying all that stuff. Email servers. Should we use email servers? I don't recommend it, but it's you could do it. But it like I said, it's still centralized because you still have to rely on the domain name and you have to rely on like all these services, all these things, but if you want a private email, go with a temporary email. You can just use a temporary email. You don't even need to create an email. So just use a temporary email for like all the things. And if you want, use the temporary emails. Use it temporary email servers like which you could use like temporary email. It lasts like 100 days and it automatically. That's good for privacy. Actually, go with that. It's way better than create an email server. But you can create your own email server, which is good. But then you have to connect your domain name, connect your credit card. If you're lucky enough, if there's any currency where you could pay with like Monero, you're good. But right now, most of it's debit cards or credit like and pass. It's not worth it. Okay. The last thing we needed to figure out is the internet situation. The internet. How do we actually connect to the internet with an ISP without having to pay with a debit card or anything? Luckily, you can still kind of keep. I don't know. This is gonna be a very difficult decision. Very difficult. So, very difficult. Now, you can use personal hotspot, like so you could use free Wi-Fi hotspot. But the problem is they could limit it. You don't have control over it. So, one of the biggest ideas is create a node, but I don't know how to do that yet, and I'm still learning about it. So, but like I said, Tor is a very good example where like you're even if you go to a cafe and you don't have like you don't pay for ISP, you don't pay for Wi-Fi, you just use the free Wi-Fi. You can use Tor, use Tails, the Tails operating system, connect to it, and still use Wi-Fi, and you can still connect to Wi-Fi, and you don't have to pay for no Wi-Fi. So yeah, therefore you're fine. So you don't really need ISP. It's good to have ISP, but you still connect to your debit card and all that stuff, which is bad. We don't want that. So Tails is recommended, and connect to PC that connected to internet, you should be fine. Especially in China, because China data centers, but you're fine. All right, and the last thing I forgot to tell you is VPNs. Now, VPNs is debatable. Now, if there's a VPN that you need a credit card or debit card, don't fall for that. Don't get it. Don't get that shit because that's one thing that violates privacy. Because then they know what you are. Now, my VPNs, however, actually not my VPNs, but my VPNs online. I'm on the Play Store. If you check my VPN on the Play Store, which I don't recommend the Play Store because that idea, but check it out on my website. On my website, you can download for free, so you don't have to. But for normies, if you don't want to go through the headache of like being private, you could go to like the Play Store and get the VPN. But on my website, I have a VPN which is it's only meant for mobile for right now. But I'm still gonna make a VPN for But like I said, just use Tails. Like I'm not getting into that, but VPN is recommended with. But if you combine VPN, if you're on a mobile device, recommend using VPN. Totally use a VPN because that would help a lot. Even though they can subtract with cellular connection, like cellular towers, but it's way better than no condom. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying. So yeah, use a VPN. No, I recommend Mylena Private VPN. That's how they sponsor Mylena Private VPN. Pretty good VPN, pretty fast. And the best part is you don't take credit cards. You don't pay for anything. It's free, open source. We don't even collect data with the VPN. It's free and open source. Pretty good. Pretty good VPN. I recommend that one. Mylena VPN is pretty good. Pretty good. And also use Tails with that. So yeah, this is why I make an open source software. So I think the majority of stories we need to take back control of our lives because slowly everything's been disappearing. We've been losing control. And this is mug I actually got. Let me put this microphone down real quick. Hold on, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. Holy shit. Yeah, this is okay. Like I was saying, this is a cup I got a while back, and that is you own nothing, you own everything, and they be pissed. That's the goal, and this is the goal because also nothing too. Last thing I was trying to talk about is I was talking about right of repair, where we own less and less of everything, basically due to make it hard, where companies make it hard to repair. Go to his Rosman channel about that because I know Rosman talk about more right of repair. He doesn't talk about he talks about the ownership and right of repair part of it, which is very important too. I think that's important too. But he doesn't talk about surveillance and all that stuff and how we own less and less with data and all that stuff. And there's a lot of channels I recommend. This is what I recommend that talks more in detail. But we're talking particularly, but once again, all this technology, it's kind of defeats the purpose. But yeah, I talk about that already. But yeah, I think that's what I gotta say. Majority of stories, this is why I use Linux. This is why I use Arch Linux, by the way, because it's awesome. And I started using Monero. Recently, I started using Monero because of that situation with that last situation with that guy. I'm not gonna say it, but the bank situation. I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, that's why I started using Monero. It's just awesome, So donate if you like the show. Donate to me with Monero. It's pretty good, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. But yeah, it's just awesome. It's great. But yeah, I know there's some problems to solve still, but I'm pretty sure there's gonna be problems everywhere. But yeah, check out my website. This is my website right link below, which is cool. I don't know, you can see the website right there, and we have all content, all beautiful content. I do also exclusive content on the website, which is pretty cool. So you may see this video also on the website exclusively. I don't know, it's gonna be exclusive on my website, or I don't know, it's gonna be exclusive. So you can check this out exclusively, or you can see me on YouTube, and I can sync everything on Odyssey. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for the podcast. Thank you guys. I know it was very long. Hopefully the retention is good. Hope it was very interesting. But this is why you should think about your data. This is why you should own everything. I'm gonna go title this. I'm gonna title this. You own everything. And they be pissed. I'm gonna title this that. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for the video or the podcast. Thank you for the support. Love you guys, and I'm out. Love you guys, and I'm out.